A couple weeks ago, my husband Kevin and I were discussing, or maybe actually complaining about our aches and pains that we've been experiencing. And he says, well, you know, we are in our 40s. And I replied, no, no, no. We are in our 40. Let's not rush this. But I almost didn't make it until 40. In an 18-month period, I lost a lot of relatives. My mom had died many years ago, but in an 18-month period, I lost a grandmother, an aunt, a cousin, an uncle, a brother, a dad, and 2 cats. And you think that would have destroyed me, and to a point I think it did, but I buried it. I threw myself into work, I threw myself into side projects, I threw myself into lots of naps. I wasn't gonna, also in the late 1970s, my grandmother, my mom, and my Aunt Joan were all pregnant at about the same time. So in May of '77, my cousin Erin was born. In September, my Aunt Teresa was born. That following July, I was born. And then a month later in August, my cousin Zach was born, who was also my Aunt Joan's son. So she was kind of like pregnant back to back. And we were so close in age, and we grew up together, and it was great. It was kind of weird having an aunt the same age. She would always say, I'm your aunt and I'm your elder. You know, you have to listen to me. But so a few years ago, we lost my cousin Erin unexpectedly to just this short and sudden illness. A few months later, we lost my Aunt Teresa kind of unexpectedly to complications of a disease that she had been suffering from. A few months later, I turned 39. They were both 39 when they died. I missed that part. They were both 39. I turned 39 a month later, and I knew that I was not gonna last until I was 40. So after all that happened, I was constantly thinking I was gonna die, especially if I was in a car, you know, going under a bridge. The bridge is gonna collapse. The one day I was wearing one of those like long necklaces, and I was so sure that if I got into a crash, that the necklace would like wrap around my neck like piano wire and behead me. So I took the necklace off and threw it on the passenger side seat. Other times, when my cat, Franklin, the one that replaced the other 2 cats, he would come up and curl up next to me, and I would freak out. Because some of you might have seen this, but there was this documentary or special news special a few years ago about how this nursing home cat would predict which resident would die because it would curl up next to them. So by my cat choosing me and not Kevin, he was predicting my demise, my untimely death. So also around this time, I was kind of getting hooked to Ancestry.com. You know, I followed it so far back that I had to upgrade to the international search for $69.99 a month. I swear I'll cancel after 1 month, and you know, then you don't. But it was finding biological relatives that I didn't know I had, and also just researching my roots on, you know, all of my grandparents' ends all the way back. It kind of filled some voids. But then I started to notice that as, you know, I would find a family that had 8 or 9 siblings, and then they would all have their family trees off of them, but there would be that one person, you know, that great aunt that never had any kids. So these dead ends on my family tree also started to really hit me here. Last July, I was in St. Louis for a work conference called WP Campus. It's kind of a web marketing conference. And I was having so much fun at the conference that it didn't hit me right away. But when I went to the airport to board my flight home, I realized it was July 15th. My birthday, my 40th birthday, was the next day, July 16th. Now, I fly a lot for work, but I am not a good flyer. I get very anxious, especially if there's turbulence. Even the slightest bit of shake scares me. My husband says, it's just like a pothole, but it's not. Like, I shake and tremble. I meet strangers this way because I grab their hands, maybe cause some divorces, I don't know. But I have never been so relieved when I landed at BWI. And then I realized I still had a 90-minute drive home to Lancaster in the dark, through construction zones with tractor trailers zipping by. And I was never more relieved when I got home to Lancaster, to my apartment. But I couldn't stop worrying yet. My cousin Zach was just less than a month from being 40. If our family was cursed, I had to make sure that Zach was okay. August 23rd came, Zach was okay, so I was okay. And I forget where my story's going next. I tried to make a beat list, but no, this was a wake-up call to me because I lived to 40. I didn't think I would. Throughout the whole year, I was afraid I was gonna die every time I left the house. So this was a wake-up call for me. For one, that I might need to get my anxiety under control. I always had mild to moderate anxiety and never really thought about it, but gosh, maybe I really did have an issue. Maybe I had some grief that I had to deal with as well. But I also thought back to that ancestry research I did about the family trees and the dead ends. And I thought back to how I've just been renting and moving and all this stuff during my whole life. And I don't want to be a dead end on somebody's tree, and maybe I'm not as scared of having a permanent residence as I used to be. So even though I didn't want these things, as I turned 40, I don't know if I want kids, I don't know if I want to buy a house, but now that I'm 40, I am kind of reawakened to the idea of the possibility. Thank you.